His research engages with decolonial practice, critical caste studies, and ethnographic inquiry with a regional focus on South Asia. So I warmly welcome Harshul Singh and request him to speak on today's topic.
Hello, am I audible and visible?
Yes, very clear. We can.
So, Jai Bhim, I would like to share my screen. Is that I'm sending in a request?
Jai Bhim and welcome Harshul.
Yeah, so okay,
Yeah,
I can share
kindly
my
go
screen.
ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, okay, I hope my screen's visible. Just give me 1 second. Can anyone tell is my screen visible well?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Hi, Jai Bhim. Thank you so much for extending this in-kind invite to me. And I'm Harshul. I'm a researcher currently based in Delhi for my work, and I work on caste, anti-caste, and higher education in thought and policy praxis. I'm trying to do so, if at all. So, thank you so much to Anna. I have been following Anna's work for quite some time now, and it's really inspiring and very assertive also at same sense. And had I knew better, I would have made my PPT or my talk today more accessible. I see a lot of kids also joined, but I'll try to be as visceral and raw. And let me know probably in after the talk we can have question or exchanges for anything. So I'm moving on. So I'm an anti-caste and decolonial researcher, and my work is very much inspired with a lot of anti-caste thinkers of a time. For firstly Ambedkar himself, and then also Sharmila Rege, Savitri Mai's work, and also drawing from anti-carceral and black radical tradition itself. And I think since my inquiry is to study about social inequality and systematic and structural inequalities in our institution, particularly in academia, and this is like has been an embodiment for me to study with these scholarship and affluences. So, also, before we start, I would like to share a small pictorial representation. And of course, the very idea, of online Buddh Vihar was very warm to me to know about it. And I wonder, just to recreate this because it has been a very long time I have went to any physical Buddh Vihar, given the work commitments and everything. So this is my Buddh Vihar in my hometown, and it's called the Bamiyan Buddh Vihar. And as you can see, like it's a very small space run on our community trust and our donations and everything. But it has been very warm. I have been going to this space for, I think, since I have been 7 or 8 years old. My parents were very staunch Ambedkarite, and it is in that senses I have been going to this for a very long time, and saying these prayers, chanting or greeting with Namo Buddhaya Jai Bhim before I could even understand the political, social, and cultural meaning of these phrases and words. So this is a small representation, and the very word Bamiyan is just very, very important. I would like to reflect also. Bamiyan then coming from Afghani context, the Buddhist historical site in Afghan, but now later not available and demolished post 2001. So this is a small pictorial presentation. It's been many, many time. I haven't been there, but I feel very warmed to realize both Vihar and online capacity. So thanks so much also for creating these spaces. I believe probably these are some sort of praxis for us in spiritual and cultural senses. So I will be talking something about very immediate research of mine, which I have been working and has worked in past years' time, published, written about it. It deals with the university and university academia and wider academia within the South Asian context, Indian subcontinent, and the South Asian diasporic census. And this is something very personal to me. This is something very intimate and immediate to me as well at the same time. I critique and study the hegemonic academic essentialism, which is very much ordained, embodied, and structured around caste society, and caste people coming from various privileged backgrounds as the ladder goes up and down within the four Chaturvarna system. And then I say to study the caste and how caste is presented, lived, and embodied in the classroom, and the idea of university, where in sense that university has always been a utopian place to study universality, equality, or all such ideals and pluralism, while university is also a site to have reproduce this hegemony of casteism. And then I also critique about and re-emphasize about the caste consciousness, which has always been there in academic spaces and which has always been working out in a very insidious, probably villainous manner, and also just over and over time being more sophisticated in its channeling, in its manifestations and its realities. So uh, this was the work that I produced last year. I with my co-author and colleague then, and we studied the South Asian diasporic academia and the people who embody this academia, who makes up this academy itself, and how they are engaging in it. It happened to be very welcomed paper. We learned it a lot then also. It talked about how Dalit and Muslims, in that particularly, are marginalized within this academia. The experiences of Dalit, Bahujan, Adivasi, along with Muslims, the religious minorities, and how they experience, how they make solidarity, or how they navigate, narrate, and negotiate these pressures, these othering, this differentiation within academia. And what would an insider perspective be? Given myself, I was a Dalit to study this topic, and my co-author then being a Muslim. So we try to do a cross interdisciplinary study, a very well taken, now also part of University of Connecticut core syllabi, and also well taken in other formats. So probably first of its kind to talk about Dalit epistemology and Ambedkarite methodology in relation to carceral Black tradition. And so this was published last year. So I built much of my today's talk also slightly on this. I'll be happy to share later on the very document of it. So then moving on, when I also say that I am speaking all of this today from a sense of my realities, in addition to my contentions and anger, which are very personal, how I have navigated this academia and this higher education, if so, and in my experiences being a first generation from a lower middle class economic background, and how did I try to make sense of it when things seem so different, being isolated also at the same point. So at time all of it was a lot of counterculture also. When I was researching and started into this field, there was a lot of counterculture in me to respond to this casteism immediately. It's only later in time, through a lot of gradual maturity and a lot of experiences, I meeting Gopal Guru, the other infamous Dalit anti-caste scholar, so that I gained a lot of composed my anger, and then also sought and thought and also worked with anger as a methodology. And this is what I do currently, to think in carcerality, to think in anger. And so these are my fraught contentions, given that I engage in university, I researched within the university, the fact that there is an anti-caste erasure within the academia, not just on the Indian subcontinent, for that to say, for the wider South Asian academia and the South Asian diasporic academia, a sense of Dalit, Bahujan, Adivasi epistemicide in syllabi, in curricula, in pedagogical practice, in representation and actual enrollment, and hiring capacities. And then being capitalization and co-option of Dalit, Bahujan, Adivasis as objectivity and extractive ethnography. That is to say that like people from DBA community does not get to work or write or speak for themselves as much as in comparison non-Dalit bodies, non-Bahujan bodies and communities are able to work on the discourses and pains and visceral violence that are given to DBA. So it also then becomes something to be co-opted and capitalized for academic advances, to treat the DBA as something extractive enough to secure their pain, to derive their work into scholarship of work, which is very objective in that senses. And I also will be talking about representation versus inclusion, in sense that the anti-caste discourse has seen so much of vibrance lately. There's so much of anti-caste work coming. There's so much of Ambedkarite discourses coming lately in our academia, which also sense that not particularly from DBA bodies, not particularly from DB authorship, not particularly from our penmanship, but also more hijacked discourses, more co-opted versions, more tokenistic individualities. So then we have we also have to think beyond, the idea of representation. Is this a tokenistic inclusion? Is it appropriative? In what appreciative sense, if it applied to, if at all? And then lastly, the hope and dilemma of anti-caste solidarities, in sense that who gets to speak about caste, who gets to speak of solidarity, who gets to forge these realities, and who bears the pain of the casted body, the violence of casted body, the discrimination of coming from it, and still who gets to pronounce and authorize the same thing, which are very two different things, very two different communities. What is happening as we speak of today's phenomenon in our academia? So I propose this then, probably to talk about all of this and realize all of this with all of you together is only through, to realizing and imagining and talking about the anti-caste knowledges and a future of anti-caste knowledges, and probably how to create it, if at all. So I want to keep it very grounded and very neutral also in that sense. But at the same point, but probably we all can also converse later about it. So I think for first of all, it is for us to acknowledge and understand, is knowledge neutral? When we talk about anti-caste knowledge, for the creation and demand for it, it's also then to acknowledge, to realize what is the problem with current knowledge system and current knowledge format itself. Is it neutral? Probably not, because knowledge is then always being created within a certain affiliation. It's not coming from vacuum, it comes from positionality, it comes from the aspects and position of the researcher who is producing it, the person who is producing it. So, and again, we are political beings, we have our ethical moral yardsticks, we have a certain affiliation, subscription to ideologies. So then we are engaging in this process of knowledge and thought production. The knowledge is never neutral. Even in my positionality, if I claim myself to be decolonial anti-caste researcher, to imagine of utopia, to imagine a plural universality, if at all, I am trying to certain and emphasize a particular knowledge stance or political stance, and therefore, even talking about inequality or equality or creating about it, the knowledge is not neutral. And so again, it has a certain sort of positionality, a certain sort of ethical and moral yardsticks. Then we have to know about, how can knowledge become casted? Because that's what I claim, the knowledge has a casted position, and it's not morally or ethically kind to DBA bodies, and it has not been, in sense that particularly the world that we see around us, the society that we see around us, or just standing example, how the sociological discourse has been of the subject discipline itself within the India. So caste does something to the knowledge. It gives a certain sense of viewpoint, standpoint to it, where it becomes more than to be perspective, to be opined and favoring a community over the other. It gives a detached and attached sense to communities, vice versa, DBA and non-DBA bodies. And again, the Brahminical modality of the interpretations of what we have seen so far has been very distinctive, has been very objective in seeing, reading about our lives and our understanding and our worldly worlds of us Dalit Bahujan Adivasis in that sense. So acknowledging that caste does a problem to the knowledge, what does then it would mean to anti-caste the knowledge itself, and what does it mean to be anti-caste if allowed to be at all? So, of course, I think there's a lot of answer to it, and probably like even I have a lot of conundrum in thinking around this. What is then to be an anti-caste, and what is and how we can make knowledge anti-caste? The first visceral thought that came into mind is for one and all is that to think of Ambedkar, who talked about a lot of these things, who had a great scholarship and was very much critical and empirical and in a very subjective sense of caste and caste structure and the lethality in that sense. So probably to be anti-caste is to be Ambedkarite, but I think there's a more grounding to think about anti-caste knowledge and making knowledge anti-caste. Of course, the first step is that to think like Ambedkar in an anti-hierarchical sense, to be inclusive, plural of everything that is around us. And I think that is a first step, that how you and I can imagine probably to create or forge an anti-caste knowledge system, devoid of our affinities and ascribed identities, yet being very plural, accessible, inclusive. So I think, of course, it's a very mammoth task. Could not undo within one session of today, or probably we are undoing 3,000 years of casteism and structure and decolonial, neocolonial hangover. But probably to realize anti-caste or anti-caste knowledge system, it is then to be anti-hierarchical at the same point. So, and again, to realize anti-caste in our time, in our spaces, in our institutional senses is little difficult, given these are very different times comparatively. A lot of things has been going globally in Indian subcontinent, wider South Asia, then to say a lot of majoritarian discourses, lot of political extremism that we see around us, and of course the crisis of war that goes. So these are very different time, and probably to think and realize or even imagine of anti-hierarchical knowledge or anti-caste knowledge is a difficult task in that in its capacity. I quote Ambedkar here, as seen on my screen also. Caste has killed the public spirit. Caste has destroyed the sense of public charity. Caste has made the public opinion impossible. This is cited from Ambedkar's very own undelivered speech of annihilation of caste. And then Ambedkar does a diagnosis, how caste has literally in its manifestation and its practices by the people who possess and profess this idea of upper and lower caste and inferiority and purity and pollution, and these stereotype prejudices come along with it. It has killed the possibility of the public opinion and the very public spirit itself. And of course, this statement being then from 1936, much valid, that speaks to our time today, that speaks to our realities today, that speaks to yours and mine world today as well. Being in academia, being outside of it, in professional job worlds, or probably speaking of the lives that we all live in our localities and neighborhoods. So and it still persists as something, so entrenched and so inevitable. So probably to realize anti-caste knowledge, even after institution, a process or a phenomenon that has survived such a long time, how then we can even attempt to think anti-caste? And that is, I think, the major issue also that you and I face. Just to claim anti-caste is not enough. Just to certify yourself to be anti-caste is not enough. There's a lot of stakes and problem, in processing, in realizing, and in being anti-caste itself. Here is a sense of an idea that what why is it so difficult or very far to realize to be anti-caste. I say that there are epistemological problems and there are ontological stakes. Epistemological here is to say that how you think about things that are around you, how you reach to a process that you are there, how knowledge is made about any phenomenon, anything that is around you or about us. And ontology is that what becomes of it. So of course there's a thought process, we have an approach to study a thing, to research a thing, and that leads to derived topics that takes us to ontology. That is to all in all say that there are problems, there are inherent inequalities even in our ways of thinking, in our ways of approach to think any aspect, phenomenon, processes around us. And when we say that, to realize anti-caste imagination or anti-caste knowledge systems or knowledge in itself is little difficult in institutionally and everything, because these are differences. There's a lot of difference between morality and dignity and equality. So the thing is that anti-caste, the word, the very phenomenon has become a buzzword, and it is so applicable, so transferable. Probably anyone can be anti-caste today. It just needs to claim Ambedkar in that sense. But probably there's a lost sense of humility, the lost sense of morality and ethical yardsticks in claiming Ambedkar and claiming anti-caste politics. And again, I think that is the difference that morality tells us about, how we are claiming anti-caste and how we are actually practicing anti-caste, how we are actually making dignity and equality of those communities who have been rendered of such a marginalization and minoritization within the spaces. So I think there's a lot of difference in how you actually realize your praxis of anti-caste. And I think probably your affiliations, your thought process, your political, social affinities and analogies will tell you about this morality that enables you to create dignity and equitable spaces for those communities who has been rendered marginalized for such a long time, who has faced casteism, discrimination, ostracism in various processes in day-to-day lives and their everydayness. Second, there's a violence of castelessness. Probably, again, the very stake, very similar stake, and again, claiming yourself want to be doing away with caste, or to be in that sense, claiming and certifying yourself. Okay, I don't believe in caste structure. And I'm equitable. I see you equal. Probably that's not enough, because are you actually preaching what are you teaching? Are you actually practicing also in that senses? So there's a lot of sense of tokenism also, in that sense, just not identifying, just not actually claiming these affiliation or these affirmations does not need to do the job alone. I think there's a lot of accountability, there's a lot of empathy that is to be explored within oneself, within institutionally, community wise. And I think that is what we realize, the difference of our ethical and moral yardsticks, and how we actually are so far lag behind in realizing the anti-caste affirmations in that senses. Similarly, realizing to do away with caste in our personal spaces, in our personal social environments is not easy, because caste is afterlife and it's very consciously unconscious also at the same point. Need not just to believe in Ambedkar, need not just to believe in entire caste community will do the job. You have to be morally and ethically stand about it. For a lot of non-DBA bodies, lot of communities from non-Dalit Bahujan positionalities often claim about being anti-caste, but again, claiming Ambedkar is alone not certification, to then think of doing away with caste. It requires a lot of acknowledgement of enabling and complicity of the system itself, and at the same point, the morality of standing back, realizing the might of it. Similarly, to not see things with objectivity. Anti-caste, again, just not then being a label in itself. There's a lot of history about it, a lot of, political, cultural, and, visceral lives that you and I have lived in that senses, and our community has lived in that senses. And it can't be, composed or collapsed in one label or one frame then. It is surprising in that self. That's why, there are a lot of ways and there are a lot of difficulty in actually realizing the anti-caste futures or anti-caste knowledges, because beyond affirmation, beyond subscription, there are a lot of ways which are implicit, unconscious, and intangible, which makes us which not makes us the community from both the sides to realize its realization. So then I propose, probably, for me personally, then Ambedkar, given that I work with his speeches, I work with his writing, then for me, the first step for me and myself, of course, beyond my Dalit personality, was to realize Ambedkar, who himself can be a method in composing my anger, in realizing anti-caste futures. Probably his is the first vocabulary for me that I acknowledge and work with. And it is Ambedkar that who tells me that making anti-caste knowledge is not enough. We have to seek anti-caste knowledge also. There is so much of vast scholarship of work. There's vast literature that belongs to our community and has been there since a very good time, that speaks to anti-caste narration and anti-caste embodiment. Probably, for example, Fule's Gulamgiri, slavery, is one of the finest example how you can read the empirical and scientific analysis of caste and caste system. So then Ambedkar also tells us, right, to realize anti-caste, we have to see in a very depth sense that how Indian society has embodied then caste into itself. That is to say, how caste wasn't just division of labor in that sense, how the Chaturvarna system reads about it. It was also the division of laborers. It was grounded and graded in equality of personhood, and it had a psyche which differs one another, which had a psyche stemming from purity and pollution, and that of course the psyche of casteism, which is much out there in sense of othering, and our daily exchanges within academic spaces, what leads to discrimination, what leads to the gap that DBA community still is unable to fill that wedge in various senses. So probably to seek Ambedkarite anti-caste senses was to diagnose that caste is a very scientific system, a very much institutional apparatus that is out there, and not just a cultural residue of the Hindu society. And I think this is the much wider debates what race, genealogy, and genius of race versus caste are often extended towards or towards each other. So that's why Ambedkar becomes important to study caste, not just in the cultural senses, not in the sociological senses, but also there's a mechanism, there's scientific mechanism that is applied to it. Lastly, Ambedkar works ask us to situate and locate the problem. Of course, the much of the work is so critical and its reading so powerful at the same point. It asks us for accountability, not just alone, but of the oppressor community. How you forge knowledges, how you enable complicity, and of course, Ambedkar asks and Ambedkar produces a sense of accountability and to approach this with humility. And I think far ahead of his time, progressive and philosophical of his time. Ambedkar knew what was coming, and probably his work then being so staunch and so powerful is also that's why so rich and so important that it's still read so far. And to realize Ambedkar as a method, I think potentially was the first starting point for me to realize what could have been anti-caste. I quote this from my recent paper then to think with Ambedkar is to ask what sustains caste, who benefits from it, and what must be dismantled for dignity to become possible. Of course, lot good in paper, but I think it's a lot hard to realize how we can actually imagine a society without caste or just the wokeness of anti-caste in actual realization. So then I think to study anti-caste, to embody anti-caste realization is not just alone a burden for Indian society, not just a burden alone for DBA community, because caste is transgeographic. It has traveled with the brownness in diaspora itself, and caste is ever mutating and ever adapting. It's not the problem of South Asian subcontinent alone. Caste is very much omnipresent within the UK, US, Canada, and elsewhere, and it has traveled with the eclipse of brownness that says in a homogeneous sense, but is very heterogeneous and carries and embodies a certain sense of inferiority and superiority in its livelihood in its expressions. There's always an upper caste and lower caste, no matter it ain't alone an Indian territorial issue. And that's why I say to realize anti-caste in this time is very hard because it's not just alone of one geography or one territorial issue. It has become visibly invisible also at the same point because of course the urban worlds are supposed to be casteless. They should be because people are educated and rational, but that's not the reality what you and I see. And again, in our everydayness, caste is much visible in our peer groups, in our social exchanges, in our gatherings and other. So, and also then to assert and identify this anti-casteness or quoting caste in that sense is there's a sense of willful disappearance. Again, the dilution in sense that caste is something not so globally scoping, and it's a cultural residue. What Natarajan says and what Ambedkar also emphasized in the initial addresses. So it is important that we address and expose and critically realize that caste is already out there and has traveled, and the brownness eclipse is not enough to let it go away. I think it attacks in the most villainous and insidious manner, often so sophisticated and so lightly taken about. So moving on, this is the last slide. I hope I have not bored you all. It's very academic and verbose things. So I think for me then to realize Antika's futures is through two things. That is true for solidarity, and second is through collaborations and coming together and having communication and idealization and realization how we can build better futures, how we can realize better societies which are devoid of any internal hierarchies or any hierarchical thought process in that sense. And I think probably solidarity and is one of the most foremost method in having these conversation and having these visualizations. And again, I think why to deny anyone of any goodness or any equality, dignity. Everyone, like we Dalits too are beautiful people. We have a lot of rational temperament. We are intelligible. We can write and speak English well. So probably, to think of solidarity is to also come together in all our anti-hierarchical formatness, and then also to realize to have humility in these courses. Of course, there's a lot of reparation that would be addressed in this process of undoing caste or realizing anti-caste, because there's a lot of anger and contention at the same point, and it's not easy. These are something, which were very visible, very very atrocious also at the same point, and are till date even as we speak. So probably to understand the complicity, to understand the accountability is important into these discourses, because it also allows you to be humility, to have humility in having these conversations. Secondly, to realize that just claiming being anti-caste is not enough. Just to say and that I am anti-caste and I am woke is not enough. There should be a sense of accountability in acknowledging one's own complicity in enabling broken systems, which has been for so long. And probably these are the first sense of reparation, indigeneity we can realize for ourselves. And second, and lastly, being these engagement, these conversations, need not to be transactional, need not to be supplied with someone to affiliation or you are the to of criticality to realize the other person is anti-caste. They should be applauded for it. I think these are basic human essence, to realize anti-hierarchical or anti-caste or devoid of caste and its structure and its insidious nature that comes about it. So probably to talk about this should not come from a sense of transactional nature of gaining something out of it also. And probably the last being reparative solidarity, acknowledging and also still making spaces for time to come about. I'll end on that note. Thank you so much for hearing me. Yeah, over to you.
Yes, yes. Harshul, thank you very much for highlighting a lot of things here. Vishal, are you there on the call? I just want to make sure you was hosting it today. Okay. Okay, looks like Vishal has some problem at his end. So, but again, Harshul, thank you very much that you will highlight so many things that is unknown to us also. And there are a lot of things that is known to us also. So, thank you for sharing your ideas. And now we will open this forum to the our general audience. So, if anyone has any questions related to the topic, please raise your hand or unmute yourself. Thank you.
But Majdad, I think your voice is not coming. I think you're not audible.
Oh, audible? No, no, it's not coming.
Now it's coming. Now it's coming. Yeah. Now I can hear you. Yeah.
Is it audible? Okay, okay. I request all the members if they have any questions related to the topic, please go ahead and ask the questions. Yeah.
Hey, Harshul, good
Yeah.
morning. Said Manish Vamankar. Thanks for the topic. Um, I would like to understand, to understand the statistical way, since you are the student scholar. Uh, Are we have any studies where we can find out how the discriminations or crime happening against our society, like any the numbers are going down or number going up? Because if you can consider a decade ago, less technology, less awareness, people are not maybe able to report it. So number may be not perfect, but I'm trying to understand, are you guys are doing any type of studies to figure out like how the things or society is changing on the different aspects, whether like discrimination on the education institute or marriage basis or other stuff. So would like to know about your thought on that. So thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I think your question is with the mainstream much argument that is extended to Dalit studies or Dalit scholars, why just keep studying your own pain and violence? Why not just start locating this pain where it has come from and start quantifying this, locating this and, telling about these pains also in a more visceral and raw senses also. So there's a lot of information being gathered and coming about for particularly what I speak, the violence, discrimination in academia, in representation, in hiring. So I'm happy to share links also later this meeting. There's a lot of data also that is out there already. What happens within classrooms, what happens within hiring processes or student admission enrollment. And I just speak for one bit. In the last 6 years, from 2020 to till date 2026, there was supposed to be almost 3,000 and plus hirings for SC, ST, and OBC communities, people in the higher education in national universities, while 3,222 seats were not given to the people of our community, and they were taken under the fold of not found suitable, a very problematic thing that functions in the Indian academia, in which a seat reserved for SC, ST, OBC is taken to be not found suitable when the panel finds the person coming from this community when interviewed is not suitable for the job enough, and it's taken back into the fold of general category. So I think probably this is the first account what speaks to me in my research also, and the data is also available on whose university website, WHOSE university. So of course very visceral, very quantified, very violent in its old imagination. But I think, of course, the light, of course, this I think that it will take a long time, probably because what my contention was also the fact that, why don't we get to speak about our violence? Why is the non-DBA, the non-Bahujan, the non-Adivasi speaking about our violence is capitalizing, monetizing our pain and our realities. So my contention and my anger is in the first instance that let us speak about ourselves and our lived experiences. But again, I think probably the mature anti-caste discourse today is asking us, to do upper caste studies, to do Brahmin studies, to do Hindu studies, just come out of this shell of Dalit studies, or in that senses. But I think there's a lot of contention how this discourse unfolds in itself. But again, there's a lot of repository data coming, governmental, non-government, mostly non-governmental, also very, very proud and assertive of the fact that, and again, the data is out and public. It comes out of people's own pocket. These studies come out of people's own pocket. But again, the data is out and so surprisingly violent and distressing.
Yeah, sure, Harshal. Thanks for answering my question. My just follow-up question on this, because I always must ask this question. But more and more world is going on the digital side, like YouTube. They're consuming their data in Instagram or YouTube. So do you have the presence there, and do you want to sharing those type of information? Because I know, like, nowadays people are losing the capability of reading the papers and everything and going through it. That is the first problem with the paper, the documentation. And more and more people want to listen the things on Instagram or YouTube. So, and at least we are present, showing our present there. At least how many audience are watching or not doesn't matter, but at least we are showing the presence there. So, are you working anything on that direction?
Okay, not particularly, since I am very much I'm very much ethically and morally tensed about what's happening with our researchers of our own community, what's happening with my Dalit brothers and sisters in that senses. So, of course, I think for me to come on the digital discourse of Dalitality will take some time, because I am just too much engrossed. It takes a lot of pain also to say that I have been working and interviewing a lot of young students, first year students from our community. It
Mhm.
just takes a lot of pain to hear them out also. But I think, of course, there is so much going, there is so much out there about Dalitality. There are so many pages, verified pages,
Yeah.
that are speaking about us. Yeah.
Yeah, because mostly, like, I generally go with that the channel,
Hmm.
like the Science Journey or Rational Worlds and all, and they are covering very good topic, and it's very handy actually. You can go anytime
Very
and
true.
listen those things. So more and more people if come and present that story, like somewhere get notified, like these are the stories are there, these are people are there
Hmm.
who are talking about it. At least the people even not relating to it, they can understand those words. They're like not suitable candidates and all. How syllabus
Hmm.
is going, or rather talking one person, if 10 people are talking or 10 channels talking about it, it will be more of, people will
Very
get
true.
more aware about it. So that's the reason, like, I'll always ask this question, like, we should increase our digital presence. So yeah, means whatever
Very
knowledge
true.
we
Very
have, if
true.
we can increase that, that will be great. So yeah, those
No,
are only two
very
questions.
hmm.
So thank you, thanks for answering my question, buddy. Thanks.
Thank you,
Welcome. Most.
Manish. Thank you. Any other questions? Harshul, please raise your hand or you can unmute yourself. Yeah. Harshul, the questions to you from my side. The caste is very vocal right now in everywhere, right? If we compare the data like 15 years back and now, It's more widely spread, more American, European people, and across the world, it has been widely known because of the social media and other things. But the impact to annihilate caste is still not happening. I
Mhm.
mean, that route is still not there. So, what is your approach? I mean, people are knowing now. It is aware of it, right? I mean, and the scholars like you, Suraj, and other members, they are widely very vocal and widely, spread their thought process. And there are a lot of scholars they do that. But still, there is no action to annihilate
Mm.
that caste. So, what is your approach on that?
You're very right to situate that question, and it is also I was trying to say there's so much of discourse coming on caste. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's writing books on it now, from either communities in that sense. So there's a hyper visibility of caste in that senses, and there are two-fold answer to that question. First is I think again the idea of morality and humility. See who gets to work on caste and in what senses monetizing, co-option, or capitalizing discourses for fame or criticality. And again, the inability, the gap, the wedge to actually reach to the ground is, I think, this problem so old but so similar for the continuing years. Of course, people understanding caste and a lot of non-Indian people understanding about the discourse of caste and the pain of it. But at the same point, there's something more distressing. I would like you to search also. It's at everyone's on your end. There's something called Boston Brahmins. It's a affiliation one can have subscribed to without being in brown body, and one can be a Brahmin in that sense, just to adopt this ideology. A certain sense of problematic ideological difference is there, which is perpetuating even as we speak. So again, the sense of that who gets to work on us are the people of our own community, are they coming from the same ethics, same morality, and same need to work for us, the same drive, the same anger. So probably I think that in the first case it is the issue is that how many Dalit, Bahujan, Adivasi speakers are speaking for themselves, are able to work in policy for themselves. So I think to be able to realize the gap, probably it's come from the lived experiences only, it comes from your groundwork only. And I think the idea, the discourse, the mobilization to be anti-caste, to be Ambedkarite, like that wokeness, the hunger to get this wokeness, get this certified publicly, is a gap between actual work and actual policy. But again, you are very right. It ain't that just 10 years work on caste has been going on. It has been going for many, many decades now. And there's so much of rich work out there. There's so many scholars out there working in Portugal, working in UK, USA for that sake. Again, you people are there. Anna is there in USA, but still things persist. There are two things. First is ideology, which is getting more extremist. Second is the idea of morality and humility, how you engage in this.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Harshil. Thank you. Thank you for highlighting that. Yeah. Any other questions from any other members? Please go ahead. Members, any questions from your side? Please go ahead. Harshil, on behalf of all the participants and also Ambedkar Association of North America, I would like to thank you for giving your time to us and highlighting the very important issue. I mean, this issue need to be discussed, but we need to work more on it. We know the issue, but we know the outcome also, but the outcome is not there. Right? अभी
Very
तक
true. Very true.
अभी तक achieve नहीं की है, and that's what we need to achieve it. And but awareness is very important, and you are doing your job, and we're also doing our job, but we are
Very
not.
true.
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions from any other members? If not, I will go to the next segment. Harshul, do you have any questions to us from your side?
Oh, no, thanks so much for extending this space. But again, you are right,
Mm.
I just want to like to add to the comment of yours. I still feel in my all the experiences and years amount of years I spent in every university in northern Indian belt. I think people still need to be angry. People still need to that rigor to think like us. Why this is burdening us. Probably either that is absent or not in that capacity. But I think again we all need the outcome immediately.
Correct, correct, correct. Yeah, yeah. Because the generations to come, right? This is our generation
Very
is going right now, and if it's not possible in our generation, next generation, we don't know.
Very true. Very
And it is
true.
going on the reverse direction. So yeah.
Very true.
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions, member? Please raise your hand or you can unmute yourself. But we do appreciate Harshul Singh for giving us the very thoughtful uh, knowledge on this forum. Yeah. If not, Kian Wagmare, you have something to announce. So if you want to announce quickly, please go ahead. Kian.
Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Dhammam Saranam Gacchami, Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Namo Buddhaya. Vandami Bante. Vandami everyone. Buddhist teachings remind us that true peace begins with ourselves. This July 4th, America celebrates 250 years of freedom, but we will also be celebrating another important milestone, the inauguration of the Mahabodhi International Buddhist Center at Garland, Texas. This is a place dedicated to mindfulness, compassion, and harmony. I am Keon Wagmare, and I am excited to invite all of you to join us on the July 4th for this special celebration. As you can see in the video that I'm about to play, we have planned a wonderful day with lots of activities for everyone. For my younger friends, we have activities by kids your age. We have activities by kids your age, and if you would like to participate or showcase your talents, please reach out to our cultural team. We would love to have you join us. Now I will play the video. Could someone give me the screen sharing access?
Yes, Sandesh, if you can.
Yeah, please go ahead,
Yeah.
Kian.
Okay, thank you.
There is no audio?
Audio is not playing?
No, we cannot hear.
Is it working now?
No, we can see it, but audio, there is no audio. So can
Okay,
you share the audio
I
from the
think I think
computer?
it's fine. It's just music. There's no like speaking.
Okay.
Thank you once again for giving me this opportunity to share this exciting news with all of you. Please consider this as my personal invitation to all of you and your families. I truly hope to see many of you here at Dallas on the 4th of July. Namo Buddhaya and Jai Bhim. Sadhu. 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 Thank you, Kranti Auntie, Vivek Uncle, and the Anna team for this opportunity. Back to the moderator.
Thank you, Kian, and very well presented. The 4th of July upcoming program at the Dallas, Texas, and we invite all of you who are on the call. Please book your ticket. Join this event. This is the first Vihara in America. So please to join. This is a historical event, and your presence is important to showcase that our community is there. Okay. Any other questions to the Mahabodhi International inauguration on 4th of July? So far, I think 300 plus registration has been done, and we are looking forward more registration in the coming days. So we are expecting around 500 people to that gathering. This is the second gathering after AIC event. So it will be the huge presence from across the world in that program. So please do register. There is a registration link. Kian, if you want to put that registration link in the chat box, that will be great so that people will go there and register and plan to attend.
I don't have the registration link, but if you want to register, there are like at the end of the video, there were a couple of numbers. You can reach out to those.
I see. Good. So with this, I would like to conclude the online Buddha Vihara. First of all, thank you, Venerable Bhante Sariputta, for giving us a Dhamma discourse. After that, there is a kids story session conducted by Kranti, and the kids story reader is O.E. Nagrare. And after that, Harshul Singh was our main speaker, guest speaker, highlighted a lot of important things, and also Kian for highlighting the Mahabodhi International Upcoming Center. So with that, also like to thank you all the participants who are joining regularly every week on Sunday. And please do join and spread the message. This online Vihara has been running since 11 years, so non-stop. And we do invite a lot of intellectuals, a lot of announcement happening, a lot of activism happening to this forum. So please do spread the message among your friends and family, and also kids, and ask them to join the Vihara every week on Sunday. With this, thank you everyone for joining again, and we would like to conclude this session here, and have a nice weekend Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dada. Jai Bhim.